I'm going to call to order the Borough of Morrisville regular council meeting for Monday, November 16th. Can we please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, under liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice.
Mr. Mitchell, can we have a roll call, please?
Virginia?
Mayor Redevelopment. Councilor Howard.
Here.
Councilman Williamson.
Here.
Councilman Ted Parker.
Here.
Councilman Paul.
Here.
Councilman Robinson.
Here.
Councilman Sherlock.
Here.
Councilman Yeager.
Here.
And our first solicitor is with us.
Yes. Okay. We're going to move.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, which is announcements and presentations. 4A is the Bucks County Department of Housing and Community Development Lead Poisoning Remediation Grant Program.
Yes, for the folks on Zoom, the slides and documents, as well as tonight's agenda, are available at the bottom. If you go into the, I believe it's the chat option, you can find all the documents related to the meeting. For anybody watching or who's in the room, this is on live streaming to YouTube, but we also have the documents posted on the public portal page on the borough's website. But yes, we do have Ms. Marseglia here with us tonight to talk about lead and the grant program.
Yes, so I'm Katie Morrisville. I'm the project administrator in the Department of Housing and Community Development's lead-based paint hazard reduction grant here in Bucks County. So to talk to you just a little bit about lead. Tonight, lead poisoning is the #1 environmental threat to children in the U.S. The CDC has determined there's no safe blood level in children. Lead poisoning is a significant and particular threat to Morrisville children due to the borough's aging housing stock. If your home was built before 1978, there's a good chance it has lead-based paint. In 1978, lead-based paint was banned by the federal government. Lead paint is still present in millions of homes, sometimes under layers of newer paints. You might have repeated a few times, but the lead paint is still there and it's still a major problem. So the County of Bucks has received a $1.5 million grant from HUD to remediate this problem. The program is designed to protect children under the age of 6 from exposure to lead-based paint, children under the age of 6 and also pregnant females. While most people associate the risks of lead-based paint with children ingesting paint chips, the primary cause of lead poisoning are ingesting or breathing in lead-contaminated dust and soil found in and around older homes. I know people think of eating paint chips. One reason why kids may eat paint chips is because they taste sweet. But usually dust, lead-contaminated dust will settle on food preparation surfaces, children's toys, children's hands. They put their hands in their mouth, they put toys in their mouth, lead poison. According to the CDC, low levels of lead can cause permanent brain and nervous system damage, learning and behavioral problems, and result in lower IQ. Elevated lead levels are associated with higher delinquency and school dropout rates. Children under the age of 6 are at most at risk because now their brains are developing, pregnant women as well. And even children who seem healthy may have dangerous levels of lead in their bodies, as lead poisoning occurs often with no signs or symptoms. But even low levels of lead in the blood can cause speech language behavior problems, brain damage, developmental delays, hearing problems, anemia, nervous system and kidney damage, learning disabilities, ADD, decreased intelligence, seizures, weight loss. so on. In rare cases, ingestion of lead can cause seizures, coma, and death. And damage caused by lead paint is permanent and cannot be reversed. If you are worried about lead poisoning, then ask your child's pediatrician to test for lead to see or microtome. So through this new program, qualifying Bucks County families can receive a full lead risk assessment of their home and property, as well as abatement plan and abatement services. So whatever is needed to improve the home of the lead-based hazards. This can also be windows, doors, siding, trim, interior and exterior pavement, porch repair, and other home safety measures. So a lot of different things we're looking at. The program is fully funded by HUD and it's completely free for participants. Homeowners, landlords, and tenants can all apply for the program. You also do not need to have a child under 6 residing in the property to qualify. If a child under 6 visits your home, so that would be defined as 6 hours per week or 60 hours per year, you may qualify, and there are a small amount of units we can use on homes without children under 6. So this is a really great program that can not only help to children with lead poisoning and all the developmental issues that it causes, but also improving home in the same way. So we're really excited about this program. If anyone is interested, my contact information should be up somewhere. You can email abcd@buckscounty.org. Visit our website at buckscounty.org/bucksled.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parker.
I have a quick question, Katie. if you
Yes.
don't mind. So as part of the program, is this to remove the lead paint, or are they encapsulating it to some extent? I guess what I'm asking is, encapsulation, is that covered under this program?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
It's both, so it can be full abatement or interim controls, which is like encapsulation. So
Okay,
let's
thank you.
walk through the risk assessment and figure that out.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
since it was a little hard to hear everything, could we have yourself or Scott repeat the website that you said to go to? And was there a total amount of, that the grant, did she give a total of the grant?
Katie, did you say the grant was 1.5 million?
Yeah, that's how much the counties are spending on.
Right, well, congratulations on that, because there weren't a lot of those grants awarded by HUD, so congratulations for getting that. But
Thank you, we're really excited.
yes, it's 1.5 million, and I'm sorry, what was your?
She had given a website for anyone who's interested.
buckscounty.org. Or you can actually go on the borough's website. All of her information is on public portal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
/lit, okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're going to move on to 4B,
Thanks, Katie.
which is the Select Morrisville LLC updated conceptual proposal for Williamson Park Town Square.
Hold on for 1 second before. I'm getting texts and phone calls about the sound at home. John, are you able to do anything with the sound? No. Okay, well, I guess making an announcement that the sound isn't working at home isn't going to do good for people at home because they can't hear me, but if anyone knows anyone that's watching at home, if they text you, tell them we're trying to work on the sound. And
Is it both Comcast and Verizon?
say again?
Is it Comcast and Verizon, or is it only one of your providers that doesn't have sound?
Well, it's probably both of them. If John, if there's no sound here, you don't have sound in that booth?
Nothing going out. No.
Okay.
They can watch it live on YouTube or live on the website if they have internet access.
Yeah, they won't be able to hear me say that though, if I say that, so. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to keep my voice.
You might want to tilt the mic up just a bit.
In fact, John, you can pull the mic out
All right.
and hold it.
Try to do that. Okay. Now I'll talk right into it. I remember last time I was kind of accused of swallowing this microphone. Still hear me? No?
It's on.
It is. All right.
No.
All right. I'll do my best. I'll keep my voice up. Some of you were here
in August 13th of 2019, when we made a first conceptual presentation of the project that we're calling Williamson's Park Town
I'm
Square.
sorry, John, is that microphone working?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear, and we're gonna have a lot of people doing public comment, and
Yeah. Real close, but doesn't sound like it's working.
It's low, that's all, I don't know, there's no way for me to adjust it on.
are the batteries good?
Yeah, right now. Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2.
That's better.
Just have to close it.
Better, right?
Hold it closer to you. That's-
Yeah, I have, okay. Start over again here. We made a presentation, Joe McGrath and myself, along with several of our project team back in August of 2019. We gave the council then an outline of a project that we thought was quite exciting and held great potential for the borough. At the end of that meeting, those of you who were in attendance will recall I asked whether this was a project that had some interest to the council members or whether there was no interest. We got enough positive feedback that we thought we would keep moving forward. Over the last 15 months now, our team has spent thousands of hours and many thousands of dollars to try to move this project forward. I know I've heard some comment that some people in the borough wondered what happened to us. Well, I'm going to explain that to you. We told you at the time that this project would involve other properties beside Williamson's Park, besides the properties that the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission owns, that we had hoped to be able to incorporate. During the months that followed, Mr. McGrath continued his negotiations and Select Morrisville entered into a number of agreements of sale with private property owners who have properties in the vicinity of Williamson's Park, many of which are now incorporated into the plan that you'll see tonight. I think you can all appreciate that put 10 or 12 properties under agreement in one area is not a small undertaking. The fact that Joe was able to do that is some testament to his stick-to-itness, and also to, I think, the enthusiasm of a number of the people who own these properties. When they saw the plans, they wanted to make their properties part of what we're attempting to do. We have a block of properties along Bridge Street now, bounded by Park and Wanton Central. We put together basically a city block. You'll see what we propose to do with that block. You may remember at the north end of this project where we had some of the luxury residences that we're proposing to incorporate into this project. There were some out parcels for residential properties. All of those properties have now been put under agreement. We had to renegotiate some agreements come this spring when the COVID-19 crisis hit. We had to delay some of the engineering on this project. Our surveyors weren't able to put their crews out in the field. So we ended up slowing down and probably cost us 6 months. But we continued to work forward. We had a meeting with the borough staff in February of this year. At that point, we were ready to kick the project off when it entered into contracts with the consultants who were going to be part of the contract team or the development team. Soon after that, as you know, there were all sorts of restrictions put on businesses and affected our project members too. They had to cease work until the end of June, basically. We continued to work through that period of time. We continued our discussions with the Redevelopment Authority, a key player in this project. We completed, ultimately at the end of the summer and into the early fall, boundary and topographic survey of our entire project site. We also had listened to the questions and concerns and comments from council and the public at that August meeting, as a result of which the concept plan that we're going to show you tonight continued to evolve from the plan that you saw back in August of 2019. For example, we heard comments that a number of people were concerned about the 6-story luxury apartment buildings that we showed at that time. The one you'll see tonight is an alternative. We're not saying that the other one was bad, but this one is an alternative to show you the highest buildings we have now are 4 stories. And we've spread them out. We've added a new block of apartments on some of these private properties right on Bridge Street, right near the river. You'll see how that expands the project scope. We've also continued to work on the development of architectural concepts for the project, some of which you'll see here tonight. We asked to be on the agenda tonight for one very important reason. We didn't ask to be on the agenda for the approval of the motion that I saw on the agenda this morning. That I didn't draft that, we didn't draft that. We are going to ask you at the end of this meeting for your preliminary evaluation of the project, and if you're still willing to go forward, to tell us what it's going to take to get you to endorse this project, whether that's us meeting with your planning commission, your environmental advisory council, whether it's having a public meeting. We're willing to do all of those things, but we need to be able to do that promptly. The next steps, we've gone as far, Select Morrisville has gone as far as it can go with this project without an endorsement of the project by the Borough Council. Why is that? Let me just explain that. I touched on some of this stuff a year ago, but if you're like me, you probably forgot what I said. I had to look at my notes myself. We need to expand in order to make this project viable. We need to have council expand the Borough Redevelopment District. We've met with the RDA. They're willing to cooperate with us. In fact, they've been chomping at the bit to get started, subject to an endorsement by council. We also need to work with the RDA, again with council's approval, to begin the process of acquiring by negotiation or condemnation the underlying fee simple ownership of the Williamson's Park properties that are subject to the long-term leases that the borough entered into in the 1920s and early 1930s. We also need to talk to council about having properties that are owned by the borough transferred for purposes of the incorporation into this project into the Redevelopment Authority. Select Morrisville is not going to be acquiring the property. The only way we can put all these pieces together is through cooperation and through the Redevelopment Authority, because we need to combine and then re-subdivide. It can't be done with the pieces as they're currently constituted. We then need to enter into agreements with the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission. Toll Bridge Commission has been approached generally regarding this project. They're waiting to see whether Morrisville is willing to commit to it. If they are, we believe that they will commit to it. But again, we can't proceed. We don't have control. The Redevelopment Authority doesn't have control of the project. We can't prepare preliminary plans, obviously, until we know what properties are incorporated. So I'd like to say that in any big project that I've been involved in the 48 years I've been practicing law, any big project like this is necessarily a partnership between the developer and the municipality in which they propose to develop. All the good projects are the result of joint cooperation, sharing the vision, and moving forward cooperatively. If there's reluctance, you all know that somebody tries to come in and force their way through, it never works out the way anybody hopes that it's going to work out, and it's not usually in the best interest of either the developer or the municipality. So we want to hopefully have you enter into this project with us enthusiastically and as our partner, not with your money, with Select Morrisville's money, but with your enthusiastic support, comment, and your vision, because you know this town obviously better than any member of our team knows. We put together a project team here that I think is probably as fine a team as you'll see anywhere. The consultants that Select Morrisville selected all have years of experience in the field for which they've been selected to participate in this project. You're going to hear from a couple of them tonight, but there's a lot of other ones in the background. I'm just going to tell you briefly, if you look at across the bottom of all of our plans, you'll see some of the names. We're working with KSS Architects. Architecture and Planning, Marilee Maycock will be talking to you tonight. Minnow and Wasco Architects, their specialty is the design and planning of luxury apartment type dwellings that you're going to see more of. Dave Minnow is going to be talking to you tonight. Sakura Wells Appel, Planning and Landscape Architecture, they'll be participating along with the architects in the development of the landscape elements of the plan. They've helped us put this presentation together tonight. Stanfield Associates, Peter Stanfield is here tonight. They put together the architecture for the preliminary architecture, none of this is final, for the commercial elements of this project. Behind the scenes, we have Traffic Planning and Design, a well-known traffic engineering firm in southeastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Those folks have already done a significant amount of background traffic work. Select Morrisville entered into a contract with them in March. They did all of the background that was necessary to develop and submit a scoping application to PennDOT. The first step in doing a traffic study is to obtain approval from PennDOT of the scope. That was a major undertaking on this project. That was submitted approximately a month ago. And again, once we know we have a project and support from council, that study will be moving forward. But again, we have to kind of settle down on the elements of the plan and what that plan is going to look like in order to make that full-blown traffic study reflect accurately what you can anticipate. Preliminarily, they know what they're going to do. Preliminarily, they have some conclusions. But again, it's all preliminary. In addition to that, Earth Engineering has been retained to do the geological services. First of all, they've done a phase 1 environmental study of all the properties that are involved here. They've also have a contract let to do the testing that's necessary in order to move forward. Once we get the project buildings sited, they'll be participating in that regard. Also behind the scenes, we have Eric Hetzel, who is an expert in putting together fiscal impact studies. Eric has done there's one page of Eric's work that's in the back of this booklet. We're not going to touch on that today because, again, this is kind of very, very preliminary, but it gives some preliminary economic impacts that you might anticipate. It's not the detailed revenue studies. Those all depend a lot on exactly what the details are, what the tax rates are. There are a lot of assumptions that have to be made in order to make that study something that you can count on that really tells you anything as far as the actual dollars and cents impact. These are the preliminary impacts. The number of jobs that would be created even during construction. Some of the anticipated financial impacts and revenues that could be generated even during the construction phase. And that's kind of the first step in the analysis. We've included that. All of that whole team is waiting to move forward with this project if you will help us move forward with it. And that's what we're here for tonight, to hopefully get you excited, as we are excited, about the potential for this project for the borough. We think you have a unique opportunity as a result of Joe McGrath's hard work to assemble all these component pieces, ready to move them together to generate the project that we're going to show you tonight. The first person that I'd like to introduce to you is Marilee Maycock. I'm going to ask Marilee to kind of give you her perspective, tell you a little bit about what she does and what her role has been here and how she views this project and how it, in her view, will impact the borough. When Marilee is finished, we're going to have David Minnow give you an overview of his concept for the luxury residences that are going to be included here. I know a lot of people hear the word apartments and get excited and say we don't need any more apartments. We're not proposing what you think of as apartments, and David will show you why. The third speaker tonight will be Peter Stanfield, just to give you a brief overview of the commercial component and how you probably will already have heard how that commercial component fits in with the residential component of the project. And with that, with your permission, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Merrill Lee to start this presentation.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Since you're kind of segueing up there, swap out this mic, see if this one works better for you. We seem to be having a technical problem tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry.
Is that louder?
Yes, much better.
Okay, you are. I don't think it's got a clip. This has a...
Check 1, check 2.
Can people hear me?
Here's your clicker.
Where's the volume? Can people hear me okay?
Scott, do you have to hold that right up to your mouth, or
I would, but why don't you do a sound check? Just hold it up, and because it sounded much better than the one John was using.
There must be like a black zone in here.
Check 1, check 2. John, can you turn the gain up on this a little bit? Turn the gain up, the volume. Turn this. You can't turn this up.
That doesn't sound bad.
Better than it was, isn't it?
Check 1, check 2. I guess that's what we're gonna have to do tonight.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Is there any swearing in? No. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm fairly new face to this project. I've been brought in to give a fresh perspective and allow the team to create and achieve the vision for the community. So I'm really here to kind of look at this from a fresh set of eyes. So a little bit about me. I'm the managing partner for KSS Architects. We are an 85-person firm. We have offices in Princeton, Philadelphia, New York. We specialize in learning, commerce, and community work. And 75% of our work is for developers. And many of those developers are actually social impact developers. I am actually born and brought up in the Lehigh Valley, a little town called Emmaus. I'm a Penn Stater, and I began my career on the corner of Makefield Road and Big Oak Road. And I lived there for many years. I love the Little Giant here in Morrisville. I went there many times. I have 30 years of experience. I'm an architect and a planner. And my specialty is community engagement and building neighborhoods. I have served over the last 15 to 20 years as the chair of my town's zoning board. I live in Cranberry, New Jersey, which is a little 4,000 person town in central New Jersey. And so I understand what it's like to protect community and community assets. And so I really feel for everyone in the room. I know what you're going through right now. As far as this project goes, I've just gotten to know Joe over the past few months. And as I said, I work with a lot of developers, and I apologize to all the developers in the room, but usually they're all about the bottom line. And I think, so sorry for anybody that may offend. I think in the case of Joe, I think you're really fortunate because he's not about the bottom line. He's about the vision, and he's about this community. And you can tell based on the people and the soles of his feet have been worn through meeting with people and really trying to find out what the community is looking for. The other asset with Joe is his experience in building downtowns, especially the retail piece. His entire career was focused on retail, and he has studied towns from Florida up to Long Island, Massachusetts. What makes a good downtown? What makes the right mix of retail? Usually in our developments, we have to hire a consultant for that, and most of the times they're off base. And if you don't get the retail mix correct, the development sometimes doesn't succeed. So I think having that sort of integral to the team is a huge asset for the development as well as for Morrisville and its revitalization. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the opportunity. I'm going to skip around a lot, sorry for... Okay, right now I'm looking at a map, it's called Context. And in this map, the Delaware River slices down the center of the page. The site is actually the brightest center of the page, and it has a red line around it. That identifies the site. It's actually around 37 acres. And this site is actually a huge opportunity for Morrisville. And the reason why it's an opportunity is because right now I see it as sort of like an underutilized asset. And, you know, my impression coming here, I've been here maybe, you know, well, I used to live here, but just recently, it feels a little forgotten. And I fear that if it's left unattended, it will continue to decline, the site and sort of the surrounding areas around the site. But that is what gives you the potential, and I'll describe what the potential is of this property. So first of all, it's a large parcel. That's really great to have such a large parcel when you're building neighborhoods and you're trying to make impact in a town. You're trying to sort of revitalize an entire town. Having this large parcel is an amazing opportunity for this town. Right on the Delaware, oh my gosh, it's amazing. The views from the levee, access to nature and the footpaths that are around the site, huge potential. Between two bridges, the Calhoun and the Trenton Makes, connecting Pennsylvania and New Jersey, huge potential there. And when you think about it, it's actually a central location between two major cities, New York and Philadelphia. So the access to Route 1, 295, 95, you can pop over to the Hamilton train station and be in New York in 54 minutes. You can get down into Philly on SEPTA in, you know, probably less than 45, I would say. So huge potential there in terms of, you know, and a little bit of a hidden gem. Morrisville is really a little bit of a hidden gem. And then last, the park itself. And the fact that this is an amazing opportunity for your town. It's a beautiful park already. How can we actually spruce it up and make it even more exciting and vital to the town? So I think that this development that we're thinking about can be a huge financial driver for Morrisville, providing you with unique financial opportunities, jobs, opportunities for new types of desirable housing, increasing property values, not just sort of adjacent to the site, but I think in the entire town as a whole. If you've ever heard the term, you know, the rising tide floats all ships, I think that would apply in this case. Elevating the businesses that are already here. I think, you know, when you do something like this, you not only elevate what's on the property, but you also elevate everyone around it as well. And then enhancing the public amenities that are already here. I think, you know, these are all things that I think that this development can help you achieve. And so as a professional and a citizen of my own community, I would actually recommend that you seize this opportunity. The time seems really right now to make this a community asset, a place that will benefit Morrisville. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, this is a closer view. It's called site analysis. And I will talk a little bit about my, this is actually the same view, just closer in. So the Delaware's at the center. The site is bordered by the Delaware River. Central and Park, the little development in the center of the donut, let's just say. Delmore to the west. Trenton Makes to the south. And Calhoun to the north. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and what I do. As an architect and a planner, I do a lot of research into psychology of the built environment. And I wanted to talk about three areas that I research. The first is called biophilic design. And it's the understanding that inherently people are really desiring the opportunity to connect to nature. And this comes out of sort of our human roots. We were hunter-gatherers, we were an agrarian society, and as time went on, we became industrial, and now we're basically a technological society. Look at us, we're all hooked up to wires and everything like that. But there are real psychological and physical benefits to reconnect back to nature. Think when you're working a full day and then you go out and walk the dog, how everything in your body just kind of relaxes. This is what biophilic design is, giving people access to natural materials, to natural settings like this site will have on it. The second piece that I study is place, and what does place mean to people? People want places that are interactive, immersive, and inclusive. You want to go to a place and feel like you are allowed to go there, you're included. You want to actually interact with other people at that place, and you want to immerse yourself in the place. And so the goal of this project will be to create places, and I say multiple places because the site will have many, places that can attract people of all ages, genders, races, and socioeconomic classes. Places that get people excited about the experiences and the activities that are happening here. Places that feel safe, healthy, visible, timeless, friendly, and welcoming. Public places like streets and parks that can be used in new and powerful ways. Places that celebrate your local businesses that are here, make them more transparent to people not only in this community as well as people from the region or other areas that might come here. That also helps to build economic sustainability. And last but not least, places that express your vision, your identity, your values, your legacy, and your heritage. A place that's truly Morrisville. So the third piece that I study is actually community. And understanding what community is, there are some basic building blocks to build community. And those building blocks consist of basic needs, basic human needs like housing, healthcare, food, recreation, and education. Think about everyone you know. They want those things in their life. And so what we've done with this, oh sure. So what we've done in this development, and I'm going to move to a site plan now, is we have designed a development that takes on this building blocks of community idea and really builds a mix of uses to build a live, work, play development. So this development will include retail, housing, restaurants, food, with the grocery store, healthcare, and recreation. And so in order to really figure out how to engage Morrisville, the town, in this development, we really have to understand first the mix of uses. That's where Joe comes in. Really understanding how all these mix of uses come together and feed each other. We really want the housing to feed the retail to feed the park to feed the housing. It's a symbiotic relationship. But then also, how do those uses relate to Morrisville? How do they relate to the region? How do they relate to the state? Can this become a destination? We're hoping so. So the right mix of uses. The right distribution of uses is another piece that really has to be carefully considered. And in this development, we want to make sure that that distribution provides access for people in town to explore and to experience these neighborhoods. And the way it's put together is it's almost like a bookended development where we have the commercial district on Bridge Street, on the Trent Makes Bridge, and housing by the Calhoun Street Bridge, and then the park is in between the two barbells. The next piece that we really want to do as we consider the development, and people are probably looking at drawings and things like that, but we're not really asking anybody to comment on the designs or the layouts or anything like that because we're so early on. We're really just trying to begin the process of establishing the vision for the project. So what I'm walking you through is strategies that we use in order to kind of engage you as a community. We take these uses and we create a series of places within the development. And so those places are pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods and they belong to Morrisville. So the first neighborhood that we're going to talk about is the Bridge Street development. And that is a very vibrant experience along Bridge Street, right after you come across the Trenton Makes Bridge. I'm going to show you a picture. Peter Stampfel did a beautiful rendering. This one. So this describes the kind of feeling that we're going for in the commercial place. This is place number 1. So I can imagine ice cream shops, walking your dog, strollers, benches, umbrellas. These are the kind of places, the kind of streetscapes that you're looking for. The materiality with the nature, the natural materials with stone and lighting and plants, biophilic design. These are some of the strategies that we've used in this design. The second place is the commercial quadrangle. I don't have a rendering of that per se, but it is the area behind all of this commercial center, which is right back in here, and that's going to include a grocery store, as well as potentially access to all of the retail that happens along Bridge and Delmore Avenue. The third place that we will be creating is the town green. Let's see if I can find renderings of this. This is a very energetic group. Well, this is one of the places that we're talking about. But the idea of building the town green at the grand scale, the solitude, nature, walking your dogs, picnicking, very inclusive environment, everyone in Morrisville. That's something that is really important to the park, building this sort of iconic town green, let's just say. That's place number 3. I don't have a picture of it per se. Place number 4 is the amphitheater. This picture on our slide right now is called amphitheater. And this is actually where you can host Morrisville events. Your 4th of July fireworks, movie night, celebrations, anniversaries. You could even have weddings here, who knows? But the idea of having the band shell with the Delaware River in the background. Talk about, biophilic design at its finest. The engaging of community, the building of place. These are visions that we have for this development and how amazing this can be.
How many people do you think would be building this amphitheater?
It's not designed yet. These are watercolors.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, I know that your town is like around 8,000 people, something like that, and I've heard that you've hosted the entire town in the park, and I think that we want to try to maintain that concept, that you can host the entire town for events. Can they all be hosted right in the amphitheater? Probably not, but I think that's fine. To have, I know in our town we have the fire department does like a safety day, and everybody comes out and they have helicopters. It's really fun. So we're definitely targeting, trying to accommodate everyone in town.
While we're on that, I have a quick question too. Could we do something
Sure.
like a Levitt Pavilion there?
Yeah.
A Levitt Pavilion. The Levitt Foundation sponsors pavilions like this that have live music and events. It's like 30 or 40 weekends a year, I believe. Something to look into.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about that idea is that it's actually formally programmed. These places can have very active programming and they can have very passive programming. And I think building a mix of both and really hearing from the people of Morrisville about what they're looking for, what are they missing in the park right now, I think that's actually a really interesting next step.
I know they have one up at the Steel Stacks in Bethlehem.
I love the steel stacks, yeah. And they have a really cool band shell, and they have the little walkway where you can go along the blast furnaces. And that is uniquely Bethlehem, that project. And so that's what I'm saying about this project is it should be your identity, uniquely Morrisville, and what your history and legacy is. So the 5th place on the property is the residential neighborhood. And I'm not going to get too detailed on this. I'm probably going the wrong direction. Okay. I'm definitely going the wrong direction. Sorry if I'm making anybody dizzy. Go this way. Okay, so this residential neighborhood is really important to the people that are on Central and Park. They're kind of like hidden back in the back there. Let's just say it's almost like they're not really connected to Morrisville. And I think that what we would be proposing is a way of actually connecting that neighborhood through this neighborhood up into Morrisville itself across Delmore Avenue. And so I think that's really important to make everyone feel like they're part of Morrisville, and to remember that neighborhood is in there and allow them to become a greater part of Morrisville and give them greater access as well. Let's go to the last page.
These concept plans about the residential neighborhoods and the buildings, how many people do you think would add to the town?
We're going to have the housing architect is going to speak after me. So, one of those. Okay, two more things that help to engage Morrisville itself. Connecting to the network of Morrisville. And when I say connecting to the network, multimodal network, multimodal connectivity. So connecting to the street network is really important to give people of Morrisville greater access to the neighborhoods that are in here, but then also distributing the traffic. So that's one of the reasons why having the residential at the barbell ends of the development allows easy access out into Calhoun or to Trenton Makes or to the other highways that are around. So that's really important to connect to those street networks that are around Morrisville. Connecting to the bus stops, we'll probably be meeting, are there bus stops in the neighborhood that we can connect to? Bike paths, and then the pedestrian pathways that connect along the levee, connecting up to New Hope, maybe down, there's a cute little dog park. Can we connect all of these things in town? It's really important to connect this. And then the last piece is the identity. The built environment that celebrates the identity of Morrisville. What is the essence of Morrisville? What is the legacy? Like you talked about steel stacks. That is the essence of Bethlehem. This one, what is the essence of Morrisville? We need to figure that out. And that essence really needs to be a multi-sensory experience. What are the sights, the sounds, the textures of Morrisville? And the reason why it's so important is because once we understand that, we can build a very safe and vibrant, not only daytime, but nighttime environment, because this is people's homes. People are going to be living here. So it wants to be this 24/7, 365. It wants to feel like it's a neighborhood. And then what are the different seasons and the opportunities that the different seasons, like the snow or the ice, the fall leaves, those types of things, how can we celebrate those different seasons through beautiful access to nature? So development that really is authentic and is Morrisville, that's what we're really targeting. So, I don't know if anybody need to touch anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. A couple of follow-ups. Joe McGrath whispered in my ear that he anticipates the amphitheater, if it were constructed on the scale that's shown here, has the potential to seat as many as 6,000 people. Well, I want to go back a minute here. This plan shows, if you compare this to the plan we showed for the recreational area the last time, there have been some changes. What we showed last time was what I'll call an active, developed recreational facility rather than a park. This time, what we did is we left what I understand to be the field on which the championship team in 1955 played, just because we thought that might have historic significance. We left your playground, which we understand is relatively new. We put the amphitheater there for concept. But Select Morrisville, as we envision this project, certainly is not going to tell Morrisville what should be in this area. It's by acreage, what's highlighted in green is 14 and a half acres. Obviously, if you take the levee off, it's a little bit less than that, but that's the scale of this. It's the largest single piece in this project. There's a lot of potential there, but it would be up to council to work with us to say how they prefer to see this developed. We're not going to tell you how to develop your park. And I think that's important too. I'm going to introduce Dave Minow. We can come back and you can ask questions, but I think Dave is the logical next speaker. He's going to tell you about the type of residences that we hope to include in this project and why it's important, what it's going to do for you and what it isn't going to do for you, probably just as important. and how many people could be anticipated? David? And you might tell them a little bit about yourself and your experience too.
Thank you, John. My name is David Minnow. I'm with Minnow and Wasco Architects and Planners. We're about an 85-person firm based in Lambertville, New Jersey, and Newark, New Jersey. And our core business is planning residential and mixed-use communities such as this. And we are very excited about what can happen here in Morrisville and what it can do for the town. We have seen redevelopment in many, many locations revitalize older downtowns. And part of that happens through the new population that will be here, but part of your population who will live here will be part of your town right now. In other words, people's lifestyle changes over the years, and we really expect two distinct markets for the residential community here. And both of them are renters by choice, not because it's the cheapest can on the shelf, but because they're choosing by lifestyle to live in a luxury rental unit. And the two main groups are empty nesters, people who, many of them will have lived in this immediate area, who may no longer want to take care of a single-family home, maybe selling that home and keeping an apartment here, maybe buying a place in the Carolinas or in Florida and splitting their time. But they want to be here because their family's here, where they worked is here, where their place of worship is here, relationships are here. So they want to stay in Morrisville. And this allows them to find a carefree living environment. And they may not want to get mixed up in the for sale housing market anymore, because we all know the ups and downs, and when you're ready to sell, it may not be the right time to sell. So many people my age and older are really becoming lifetime renters. The second group that we see are younger working people, young professionals, young blue-collar workers who have a good income and are starting their living experience in this area. And because of the relationship with Trenton and the Trenton train station, you have an obvious commuter market to New York. Hopefully when this pandemic ends, that market will pick up again. But we also already know that many people who live in the surrounding area, Bucks County, work and commute to New York. That may not happen as much in the future. There may be only 1 or 2 days in New York, and the rest are working at home or by a Zoom meeting, but we still anticipate that to be a strong market. And those people generally are childless at this point. They may get pregnant and have a baby here, live here for a couple of years. But these buildings are elevator-served buildings, and it's been really proven that people with school-age children, once they hit school age and really have their legs, they want to live in a different environment. They want to live in a townhouse or a single-family home. So we don't see very many children populating these types of buildings. In fact, approximately 80 to 85% of our units are going to be either studio units or one-bedroom units. So we're planning a rather small mix within the project itself. So let me take you on a little trip, if I can. Let me go back here. Okay, the first area that we're going to talk about is the more northern area, bordered by the levee on the northeast side, Delmore, and then the park is directly to the south or to the right of this picture. And what we've planned here are, first of all, 3 smaller buildings along Delmore Avenue that really relate more to the scale of the residences across on the western side of Delmore Avenue. And those are 3-story buildings, and we've tried to make an effort to put most of the parking behind those buildings. So what you'll see along Delmore is really great landscaping and good architecture. So that's the kind of experience we want there. And then our main entry to the larger apartment buildings comes in through a boulevard and has pretty much like a European motor court drop-off at the main lobbies to each of these building complexes. These buildings are built with 4 stories of residential over parking. So there's garage parking that you really won't see. So that's one of the beauties of this project. We have a fairly high number of units, but very, very low visibility of large parking lots. So it's tucked under each of these buildings. And the brown portions of the buildings are the actual building legs, and we try to, just like you would at the ocean, if you wanted to take advantage of views at the ocean, you wouldn't put your building parallel to the ocean because half the units wouldn't see the view. So we turn them perpendicular to the view, which is the river and Trenton and the park. And so everybody has a view, an angled view to those river views. But we also create some views with these rooftop outdoor amenity decks where we have a pool deck and seating areas. We have fire pits, we have outdoor grilling areas, those types of things for people to use. And not much of our amenity space that's indoor to the building, such as fitness centers and club rooms, are located adjacent to those amenities. So people come into the building and the main lobbies are here, and then the parking is underneath, and they're all elevator served. So let me move to the rendering of this area, which was shown before. In the foreground is Delmore. Here's our boulevard and entry to the motor court. Our main building entries are here. And then you see the raised amenity decks. And at that point, you'll be high enough that you'll be able to stand and see over the levee from those amenity decks. So those people who are sunning themselves or outdoors enjoying themselves in that area are able to see the river and the views of Trenton. The architecture is meant to be a combination of the traditional bones of a building, the residential buildings that you would see in the area, but we've added some contemporary features. We've got some beautiful living rooms that sit on these corner tower elements and provide glass on both sides of the living rooms. We also probably would have on top of each of these two larger buildings a rooftop amenity deck. It would be up on the fourth residential level roof, and that would have views, even better views out to the river, especially nighttime views. So this is a view that might be in the courtyard, taking advantage of the architecture. We're showing here a stone and horizontal siding and some brick and metal panel. But a nice sort of combination of traditional forms, but done in a little bit more contemporary style, which is where we see people going today. Many of the people who are going to be living here have traveled to great locations around the world on business and pleasure, and they're expecting that kind of environment when they enter their building. This is, again, is the...
Can you pause 1 second?
Sure.
Yes.
Absolutely, no one on this team can understand a word that's being said. It's all garbled. I haven't been able to follow any of this. I do have two questions. One is, if we're broadcasting with no volume, are we making some volume? We're going to use this as our record. There is no way you're going to get any. There's no way you're going to get any feedback. I cannot understand the word that's being said. So we don't have any audio in our video activity. This is really working out for audio. We're speaking to minutes. You're not going to have any minutes to go through. I'm telling you, if you use this recording, you're not going to get what every minute and word.
Okay, so do you want to stop the presentation?
I mean, I don't know how we can continue if you can't provide it. If people can't hear it, especially council people, you have to just do it, can't hear it. And on top of that, there's no way to provide any feedback to the masses. There's no one that's on this board is trying to learn about this. There's a word of it. And again, we don't have any system right now to provide any valid minutes.
What does council want to do?
Dave, is your tape working?
Everything's good?
So is it possible for us to use your tape as?
We'll send it to Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, great. But,
We have a community volunteer in the audience who's recording the whole meeting, and we will make it available every which way we can. Okay. So can the presenter continue? Yeah.
We have a valid way to make sure we have minutes and a way to provide this information to the.
But that's not from the very beginning. I would recommend that we continue on at this point, but I would say you guys have to come back and do it again when we get all the technology working right.
Well, would you be able to do a presentation to the public in general? I mean, we've heard it here. Would you be able to do something for the public in the not too distant future? Not necessarily this official presentation, but some kind of a public forum for the general public to view the plans and.
This probably goes against the COVID rules and whatnot, but if you were to pull your mask down a little bit, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, and the others around you may not feel comfortable with you doing that, but pulling the mask down will improve the audio greatly. But I completely agree with Mike, because I'm listening to the same thing Mike is in my headphone here, and I can't understand a thing that's going out of this room out to the public. I honestly, I would not have an idea what's going on in this room listening to it if I wasn't in here.
Parker?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have two questions. When the last couple meetings that we had, I could not, specifically at home, couldn't hear a thing, but somehow we managed to get the minutes.
You would only hear the people, like, I can hear Mike clear over this because he's on the same Zoom call I'm on, but we're only on the Zoom call, the public isn't. If you're not on the Zoom call, you can't hear a thing. And if you're on the Zoom call and you're talking in here on that microphone, you can't hear a thing. And that lavalier mic is not designed to be talked into like a stage mic.
Yeah, it's supposed to be on their lapel. So, but my question to Mr. Mitchell is, how did we manage to get those minutes when we could not hear the public speak before at our last meetings? Is that how we did it? I'm just saying, we managed to get full minutes before, even though we couldn't hear the public speak when they came up. All right, but I would agree. I think Mr. John, I don't know your last name, you had mentioned in the very beginning that this was a partnership and you wanted to be able to meet with the community, with the planning commission, whatever we had chosen. And I think this would be the opportunity to set that up and maybe we hear more at that time. But I do believe meeting with the public to hear it more. Like this just isn't. I think, do we still have people downstairs waiting to get in?
No, everybody's up here.
Oh, that's good. All right.
The only issue with meeting with the public is you have COVID, and we're going to have to figure out a workaround for that.
Well-
And it may be something along the lines of, it may be a public Zoom meeting where you give your presentation and then afterwards have a question and answer session in some sort of orderly fashion. But I know there's going to be a million questions.
Well,
It's going to be difficult.
I was going to suggest if our fire department would be willing, we could use the fire department, have the doors open, and just like an open hangar.
I just thought about that, but that puts the fire department at risk. If one person with COVID goes in there, they're shut down to clean and sanitize, and might put some of their people at risk too. Maybe another venue, but not one that's an emergency service.
The Elks Club, leave all the doors open. There's only two places. Or we just have, find a nice night and have it down there on the stage. I don't know.
The only other, just throwing it out there, maybe if we get our sound system working, we could do a presentation back here at another date. Just continue with what's going on now, so that at least the council gets it.
But you wouldn't be able to provide that to the public, though?
You tell us.
No, I mean, access for them.
And there's also a private meeting.
You got a memory card now, right, Dave?
Yes.
So
Do we want to continue? I mean, the only option is to adjourn the meeting.
I'm good with continuing.
Well, for the benefit of the people in the room.
But that's the only option we have, repairing the system on the fly. is not-
I think we just need to understand that because of the technical difficulties in COVID,
Yes.
it's going to be longer and more arduous than we had planned, because not planned, but than would normally be, because we're going to have to make special arrangements to make things work.
So shall the presenter continue?
Yes.
Why don't you continue?
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Again, what you're seeing here is the amphitheater, which Mary Lee talked about earlier. And this is just adjacent to those buildings that I just showed you. Let's see. Let's take a look here. This is a split view. And let's focus on the drawing on the right. This is the corner site of Bridge Street going over the Trenton Makes Bridge and Delmore. And we have a environmentally sensitive area toward the river behind this project. And we're calling this site the Franklin site. But we've designed a building here which sits on this corner and really becomes an iconic building. And when I show you the architecture, we've made this a little bit more industrial feeling than some of the other residential buildings that are closer to the residential neighbors. And this really harkens back to sort of the downtown area and buildings that came out of the past. But we've been able to design this with a pedestrian access which comes in just about at the same point as our vehicular access, and there's a trail system that leads down to the riverfront. And then we connect by sidewalk to what would be developed as part of this project as a new Veterans Park right next to the access to the bridge. So that's the first site I'm going to talk about. And then the second site is located here between Central and Park and Bridge Street, right across the street from this new Veterans Park. And this is a U-shaped building, and as you know, the topography slopes from a high here on Bridge Street down as you go down Central. It drops almost a floor by the end of our property here. So we're having again, we have 4 stories of residential over parking, but the parking will be totally below grade on the Bridge Street side. So what you're going to see, again, is good landscaping and a great building in that location. Our main drop-off would be here off of Central for people coming to visit the building, and then our parking underneath accesses off of this parking lot to the north side. But again, this is a U-shaped building with an amenity courtyard and pool that overlook the Delaware River. So here's a view that captures both of those buildings. Again, we're looking at Bridge Street to the Trenton Lakes Bridge. And here you see the 4 stories dropping down to the lower parking level as you go down Central. And then here you see the building that I mentioned, again, 4 stories over 1 level of parking. And here's our main entrance boulevarded here, the pedestrian access over the railroad tracks to get to the park along the riverfront.
I know these are concept drawings, but...
They're very much conceptual.
Yeah, but the railroad, these tracks are still being used.
They will be.
But here it looks like you're overlaying.
No, we're not. If you go back to this drawing here, the railroad tracks, if you can see this curved line, run right along the edge here. And they would be maintained, and that still could be accessed. We cross them once by vehicles right here at this point, which is similar to where they're crossed today as you enter the existing retail uses.
Okay.
So this is a rendering which I think is pretty spectacular. It shows sort of the U shape of this building with a beautiful courtyard in the back, and again the U shape of the lower left-hand building. I'm not going to talk about the parks, but I just wanted to mention that we're parked appropriately for the uses, and we can get into that later as we get more toward a planning and site plan application. But the one thing I want to go back to is who's living here and what they mean to Morrisville. And, thank you, you can see the colors a lot better. These people, we fondly call them walking wallets. These people will live here, they'll spend money in the borough. The borough needs a lift. Your other businesses in town need a lift. And this new population is really what will vitalize and revitalize Morrisville and make it a place that's really thriving in the future. So we're very excited about the possibilities for this, and we hope that you can foresee the zoning and the redevelopment plan that would make this development possible. Thank you.
David, before you sit down, one question that was asked, and I think you can probably answer based on your experience. There's a question, we have approximately, 500 apartments here. How many people would be living in this community if all of these units were built? And how many school children might you anticipate?
Well, let me give you the answer first for the number of population. Like I said earlier, we have approximately 80 to 85% of these units are going to be studio and one bedroom. So we anticipate in the 500 plus units, maybe about 850 people at full occupancy. And that will take a fairly long period of time to get there to build, 3 major projects here in town residentially. But we also see a very, very, as I mentioned earlier, in these elevator-served buildings, a very low school population. So we see about 0.01 school children. So for the entire project, I'm not a fiscal impact person, but it might be 80 school-age children spread over, the 12 grades that you have. So it's not a large population, school-age population project. It's really intended for empty nesters and young working people.
Yes, we have our fiscal impact consultant has estimated 40 school-age children out of the entire project, and not 80, but 40. I'd like just next to ask Peter Stanfield to touch briefly on the commercial component and its importance to the project and the vision that we have of that section of this project. And Peter, you can tell them a little bit about yourself too, if you don't mind.
Good evening. My name is Peter Stanfield. I'm a principal with Stanfield Associates. I'm an architect, attended Drexel University in Philadelphia. I've been a Bucks County resident for approximately 30 years, and currently our offices are located in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The commercial, let's see if I'm heading in the right direction here. The commercial section for the community that's proposed here is located on Bridge Street and Delmore Avenue. You can see on the center portion of the board that you see, there are the brown shaded buildings on Bridge Street, and then they turn the corner on Delmore Avenue. You'll note that there are spaces in between the buildings. This is so pedestrians have easy access from the parking field behind to Bridge Street or Delmore. It also allows residents of Morrisville to be able to walk through and visit the shops, as well as head to the park, which is to the left portion of the commercial area there. Some of the buildings that you see are slightly larger than others. As was mentioned previously, the one that's largest one is proposed as a grocery store. There are other varying sizes of buildings that are going to be restaurants. There's boutique hotel proposed for the upper right-hand portion at Bridge Street. Restaurants and other smaller shops would also be located on Delmore. Avenue as well as on Bridge. So this is our conceptual view of the hotel. The architecture is more traditional in nature. We felt it was in keeping with some of the historic detailing that you see on some of the buildings in Morrisville. You'll note that the sidewalks are fairly large on Bridge Street. They vary from 18 to 20 feet. This allows a number of different things to happen. You can have pedestrians walking past. It allows for outdoor dining. You can see there are tables, chairs, umbrellas that are in front of the hotel, as well as the building to the left, which is slated as a restaurant. You'll note that on the restaurant portion to the left, there is a roof deck for dining as well. So again, in this COVID era that we're living in, we're trying to provide as much outdoor dining opportunities as possible so that people can still go out, enjoy a meal, and also be safe while they're out enjoying that meal. This is also on Bridge Street. This is a conceptual view of an Irish pub. Again, you'll note planters, there's outdoor furniture, bike racks, benches, trash receptacles, landscaping that you see. To the left of the Irish pub is one of those walkways that leads you to the parking area. So again, it's going to be tree lined. It's going to be something that has nice hardscaping. You can see that the sidewalk again is a nice wide pedestrian-friendly sidewalk, and you can still have outdoor dining without impeding people's ability to walk up and down Bridge Street. This is a view of the restaurant that's adjacent to the hotel. As I mentioned earlier, you can see the roof deck, again with tables, umbrellas. Depending on the weather, it would have some of the propane heaters that provide some heat when it starts to get into the fall weather. Also, you'll notice the corner is carved out. This allows for more outdoor seating in a covered area. So again, if the weather is a little bit inclement, you can still have people enjoying their meal outdoors, even though it might be raining. They can still eat outside. This is taken on the corner of Delmore and Bridge. It's a view of the buildings that head down Delmore Avenue. You can see there's a mix of architectural styles. Again, we were trying to break up the massing so that it didn't appear as one large strip center that you may see in some of the shopping centers. This way, each space has its own individual flair and style, different colors, different materials. You'll also note that, again, the sidewalks are wider. We're proposing a 12-foot sidewalk going down Delmore Avenue. And it also then would lead to the parkland as well as the residences that are proposed on the north end of the community. Again, landscaping, street lighting, you'll notice the street lights, which would be a common element throughout. And pedestrians have the ability to walk through, again, the buildings on Delmore Avenue as well. The architecture is going to be such that it's going to really be two fronts to the buildings. In other words, from the parking lot side, the detailing and the attention to the architecture would mimic what we're showing on Bridge Street as well as on Delmore Avenue. So it wouldn't feel like the back of a building, so to say. And this is just another view of those buildings on Delmore Avenue. Again, you can see there's varying heights, so we're looking at the massing, the proportions, and the scale. So the spaces have some individuality, and they don't compete with each other; they complement each other.
How many jobs do you think this will bring to Morrisville? Just a round estimate.
That's something I think that probably would be better answered by the one consultant who dealt with the financial aspects of the project. It really, and this is my opinion, it would depend on ultimately who the end users, the tenants would be for the commercial and retail space. If it's restaurant, that's going to drive a certain number of employees. As an example, if it was a eye care place, that was a proprietor and maybe one or two staff, that would obviously be less than, say, a restaurant, which may employ 40, 50 people, depending on number of shifts, size, and things of that nature.
Just an estimate, like what do you think all these, like if all these buildings were occupied, what you would think they would be? Like 200 jobs, 5,000 jobs, just an estimate.
John has a report, he can answer that.
I don't have a report, but we did tell you, we wanted to show you that we did in fact take a look at that. If you were to go through this, toward the back of your package, we included the one-page summary, which is essentially based on this plan of some of the larger scale parameters that could be anticipated. And if you look down at the last line, projecting jobs, there are a lot of jobs obviously in the construction phase. During the operations phase, if you go all the way across to the right-hand side of the bottom column or row, there's an estimate there based on the square footage that's shown on this plan of 424 jobs during the operations phase. So preliminary, obviously, as Peter said, it depends a lot on what the final mix is. But that's based on the mix that we show here on the plan. So we haven't ignored the issue, it's just that this is about the best information we can give you at this very preliminary stage.
I have a quick question. As far as the roofs and whatnot, are there going to be any solar? I've had people ask me about if there's going to be any solar electricity generated, and not that it would power the whole thing, but over the last several years, Morrisville has not been a stranger to power outages. I don't work for PECO, I'm not an electrician, so I don't know whether, we're really unlucky with trees falling on the wrong spot, or if our grid just can't handle it, and this project will be a considerable electricity hog once it's up. And is there anything in the works to address that? Because it's not going to look too good if you build this whole thing and people are paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month to live in their apartment that loses electric 5 times a year, like I do at my house around the corner. Is there anything from that angle?
Speaking for the commercial portion, there is no plan for solar at this point in time. That's not to say that as part of the discussions, we don't look at that and revisit that. As far as the apartments, Dave, I don't know if that's something that's considered or not, but it's certainly something we can discuss. I'm not aware of any solar at this point.
That might be something you might want to look into just from an optics standpoint. In this environment, no pun intended, people are very fond of green energy and solar. I realize that putting solar panels on top of these buildings probably would put a small dent into the electric consumption, but it might be something you want to think about.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm not talking with Joe because it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Thank you. We'll certainly consider that.
Thank you, Peter. I think there probably are some folks here who want to express opinions. I wanted to conclude, though, by explaining to council what it is that we're ultimately looking for. I didn't come here tonight, it's like Morrisville didn't come here tonight, saying, okay.
Is it closer to your mouth?
I'm touching it right now, but about as close as I can get, I think. But we need, sooner rather than later, either a decision from council that you'd like to move forward with this project, or tell us that you wouldn't have an interest in moving forward. The reason for that is, at this point, as I've said at the beginning, we've gone as far as we can go without a buy-in at this point. There's lots of time for discussion concerning some of the design elements, the recreational element, but it's going to take quite a bit of time for us to proceed, for example, with the redevelopment authority. They're going to need to come before you to expand the redevelopment district. They're going to need to start the process of negotiating for the acquisition of the underlying fee. Only the redevelopment authority can do that. We can't go, we have no leverage to deal with the churches that own that. We have no ability to negotiate privately with the Bridge Commission. All of that can be done only through and with the cooperation of both the borough and the redevelopment authority. So all that stuff really has to be done before we're going to be able to come back and submit preliminary land development plans for you. We're not trying to shortcut the planning process. We're not trying to shortcut the planners, all of the appointed bodies that you have in this municipality. We certainly are willing to meet with anyone you want us to meet with. But we need to have that buy-in sooner rather than later. We have a number of people now who said, okay, we'll cooperate with you, but they're not going to sit back for 4 or 5 years while we go meet with everybody and try to fine-tune the plan before we even start through the process of acquiring the properties that have to be in the project. So ultimately what we need is approval from council of the development concept in broad sense. That doesn't say that we have that gives us a right to do exactly what we show. You know better than that. That's not how the land development process works. But at this point, if you're not in because it's your ground that we're talking about in large part, then we don't have a project either. So at some point you need to tell us. Otherwise, Joe will have to buy a new pair of shoes and he throw away the ones he wore out and start again on some other project, some other place. But we don't want that. We think we've shown you the amount of effort that's already been put into this project probably exceeds the amount of effort that you see in most projects going all the way through the land development stage. We're interested, we're invested, we've got a terrific team. We think we've got a great opportunity for you. But we'll meet with your planning commission, we'll meet with anyone you tell us to meet with, but we need to be back here sooner rather than later to ask you to buy, whether you're going to buy in or not buy into what we're trying to propose here, what our concept is. That's the ask. In the interim, we'll meet, we'll do whatever you ask us to do. We'd just like to do it quickly so we can come back here and see you again.
Hey, John, before you step away from the microphone, how, if at all, has the total project investment changed from last time you were here? I think the estimate at that time was 120 million. Are we still hovering at that same number, or?
I don't know, John, have you done any further? I mean, that's the total number, for the total build out of what we show here.
Okay.
And the total investment of the principals in Select Morrisville has probably also, hasn't stayed the same. That's gone up exponentially since we were here a year and a half ago, even though you haven't seen us. I think the amount of effort is evident just from the change. If you compare what we showed you tonight with what we showed you 15 months ago, I think you can see the amount of effort that we put into it. And I think with the quality of the people tonight, the presentations, you can see that this is a project that means a lot to the people who are working on it. It's exciting because if you look around Bucks County, you haven't seen a project like this in Bucks County. Nothing that really shows this kind of scale, this kind of vision, and you have a town that's uniquely located. In all of Bucks County, there's probably never another location that would be close to what this one has as far as potential. I mean, I think the same potential exists today as people back in the Revolutionary era saw as the possible site of a national capital here. I mean, it's the same idea. It still has the location. No other place in Bucks County has it. And it's a unique opportunity. Everybody here we're all excited about it. I think some of your borough residents are probably equally excited about it. But at the end of the night, I hope you'll give us some idea, Mr. President and council members, of how you'd like to see us proceed and when we can come back and see you.
Can I also just, one last question?
Certainly.
I know a lot of the residents are concerned about the Little League because there are so many fields there. Can you just reassure them that the league will not lose fields, that they will be built somewhere else in
Well,
town?
here's what I can tell you. There are some logical sites that have potential to be developed that way. Unfortunately, those are owned by, well, one of them is owned by the borough, one of them is owned by the school district. Again, we can't go out and negotiate with you or the school district to buy them. There's a procedure that has to take place. What we can tell you is in the project budget that Joe and his partners have put together, there is money there to develop replacement fields when the sites are made available, and we can make sure during the land development process that that commitment remains a part of what we give you. In other words, I'm used to dealing with, municipalities that have fees in lieu of recreation. You probably have heard, about that kind of thing. Well, in this case, the approval that we're envisioning here, because we understand that's important, would have a component. Part of the approval would say, set aside X number of dollars, thousands of dollars for redevelopment of fields. You work with us to acquire the sites, we can develop them for you. We can make the contribution so it's there when you locate the sites. There's no intention to shortchange. It's just something we can't go out and locate those sites ourselves, buy the ground. Again, that's way down the road, but we can tell you that the budget is there to help you.
Mr. Parker?
I know there's an item on the agenda which I don't think we can address tonight because the fact that two council members were not able to properly hear the presentation, and I would also like that some kind of forum for the public to interact with the development team sometime in the future. So maybe this is something we allow you to do that, allow the other council members to possibly view the videotape and or attend something that you do for the public in the future. I know it's the immediate future because I know you're looking at a timeline, but I don't think we could do anything tonight, move on it tonight, just given the issues we've had with
Well, and I think I opened Mr. Parker by saying that we didn't draft that motion, and we weren't going to ask you tonight for that, but we figured it's been a long enough time that everybody, and we knew that some of you council members wouldn't be here in person, so we figured it would take time to digest, and if you wanted us to do something in the next month, we have a meeting, we can put one together, we'll do what you need to do. If you have a feeling you'd like us to go to your planning commission, we'll go meet with your planning commission. We just whatever you want us to do, tell us how you'd like us to do, what you think council would like to see before we come back to see you. We'll try to fit this in. Hopefully, Mr. Mitchell can help us.
Right, exactly. I was going to say that the best thing would be to coordinate with Mr. Mitchell and try to work out some way to to present this to the public in a more informal forum.
Yeah, if I can, we kind of talked about this about a year ago, and of course circumstances beyond everyone's control, but I think an open house for the public that's both has in-person audience opportunity as well as a virtual component, like something like a Facebook town hall, while at the same time there can be people in the room, but there can also be people watching and participating remotely given current circumstances. That's one. The second, I think, is for those who wish to participate, I think an opportunity for council members, planning commission members, or any of the other boards or commissions that are going to have to touch this. If we could do some sort of caravan, with a shuttle or a casino bus, and maybe take them to locations to see firsthand some of these deluxe apartments, because you're correct, when you use the word apartment, the term apartment here, it's not what we're envisioning. So there's a disconnect there that I think would help the governing body and the other boards get their arms around what it is you're talking about. So whether or not that's a bus ride to King of Prussia or somewhere in New Jersey, for people to actually see these units up close and personal in these buildings, I think that would be helpful.
So I don't know if all that can be, I don't know if those two things can happen in a month when we've got a holiday, or two holidays. Or if maybe we, Mr. Parker, maybe we need to consider having the applicant back at the January meeting instead of December if we can't get both of those things going in time for December. So I think our plan A is let's do number 1 and number 2, like we just said, and shoot for December. And if that happens, great. If not, you know, we'll have it on the agenda in January.
You know, Mr. Mitchell can assist you with trying to, you know, get something in before the next meeting, which is I believe the 21st.
I think we can work with that. I mean, we'd
Okay.
like to work with you, and
Okay.
if Joe can communicate with Scott, we think we'll set it up, and we can
Okay.
provide the opportunity. I mean, it's never very easy to get a whole group of people together, and these circumstances make it even more difficult. I'm not sure an extra 30 days even is going to make it any easier. We're almost going to have to decide to do it or not do it. People are going to have to decide they want to participate or not participate. But
Mr. Parker?
well, that's okay. What Mr. McGrath is saying is there are slides here, and you have them in front of you in your packages that will help, I think. And I'll go back to them quickly here. And Dave went over them too. Yeah, do you have another 2 minutes to let Dave explain what these amenities are, or you had seen enough? I mean, what he shows here are the typical things that, you don't have these kind of amenities in your apartments that you're thinking of. And this is the kind of thing that I think you would see on a trip. But
You know, these slides are representative of the type of quality that you would see in the proposed project. And this shows a typical residential lobby with a concierge who would greet people as they come in. Mail and packages are handled professionally with when a package comes into the building, delivered by UPS or FedEx, Amazon, it's logged in. People get a text message that they have a package and they know to pick it up, and it's stored securely. These are typical lounge spaces that we would see in the buildings, and this is an evolving thing in a post-COVID world. We're doing a little bit more of smaller workspaces in some of these lounge areas where people can come out of their apartment and work in a small workspace. But we also would have rooms like this that could be used for small gatherings and parties. Outdoor spaces, you see on the left here, outdoor pool deck that might be similar to what we would have above the parking level overlooking the river. Again, with things like outdoor fireplaces, grilling areas you see in the foreground here, and fire pits. And then outdoor pavilion here with grilling area. This would be an upper rooftop deck that might be overlooking the river. This is up on the very top roof, again, where we have seating, fireplaces, outdoor lighting, and even a small enclosed glass room for the shoulder seasons when it's a little cool out, but you still want to get a view. And then a little bit more of the rooftop decks. Some of the rooftops over the parking would have a pool deck like this, and then this might be more representative of the upper roof deck. And then the facilities that we have in the building for recreation, full fitness centers, which are state-of-the-art, and teaching opportunities along with that. And then yoga and stretching areas. We're finding this to be a very, very popular amenity in these types of projects. The units themselves would be probably more contemporary than traditional. Wide open spaces, island kitchens, and great window areas and views. This is really what we're selling to this luxury rental market. And again, the empty nesters and the young professionals love these types of units. So this is what they're looking for.
I think it is important to take a look at this kind of amenity because Joe just whispered in my ear when I sat down next to him that he's canvassed all of the the newly built apartment complexes to see who would let folks come through. And he's only been able to find one complex in this area, New Jersey and Pennsylvania, that will allow visitors, and whether they would entertain a whole busload, I don't know.
I understand, yeah, I know
That's
a lot
a pro-
of visitors, yeah.
And that's a problem, and that is part of the problem with trying to get a busload of people out there to see what's around.
Well, I think it would be a small bus.
But what David has shown you here, I think should help get an impression. So we'll see what we can work out, but,
Okay.
all right.
Mr. Marcus, I have one last question. So there's the old water filtration plant north of the park, where and it's right before the Calhoun Street Bridge. There's another building there as well with a rooftop that's no longer used. Is this part of the plan? Are you going to do anything with that, or?
We're going to look into doing something.
Right now, it is not part of the plan.
Okay.
I think that's the short answer, but
We would
Okay.
certainly encourage something in the parks or.
I think it should be clear that what we've shown you today is a pretty, how should I say it, ambitious project with a large scale. And the intent, or the hope is, and I think Marilee touched on this, you get a project like this that is developed, it starts to have a ripple effect on the area around it. And that's the idea of a town center. It eventually expands. And, but you need a core of substantial enough size that it really is a drawing area, an area from which there is a room for expansion. An area that attracts people, and as it attracts people, then they tend to expand. That's a town center concept. I'm not a land planner, but I've worked on a couple of plans like this. This is the biggest one I've seen proposed in Bucks County. I think you've got a great opportunity here. You've got a great town. It just, and it can be a lot better, I think.
Mr. Parker? May I just make?
Yes.
It's actually, I don't expect all these questions to be answered tonight, but just food for thought for when we meet again. These are some of the concerns. That's all going to sound very negative because these are, I appreciate all the professionals. They're all very professional, beautiful, sexy pictures. Everybody's real happy with them. It seems like it's a lot of commercial, a lot of residential. But here, well, one of the things is police. Definitely, it will impact our police department. You'll definitely have to have some more police. This includes a 10-year LERTA. If people don't know what the LERTA is, that is, someone needs to explain. That's the, I don't know if I should explain or let them explain, but anyway, it was the 10-year LERTA is an abatement of taxes for 10 years.
All of which would need to be negotiated. It's not a given. We certainly would hope that you would help us out providing some incentive, but then again, that's only done if you see the positive impact long term. So, that's up to us to convince you again.
I want people to understand, I don't speak for all the people on Delmore Park and Central, but the impact this is going to have on the people that currently live there is going to be enormous. And there are no pictures of the back of these beautiful buildings. If you have a hotel, you have a loading dock, you have some ugliness to all businesses. All you have to do is look behind the 7-Eleven parking lot, the 7-Eleven down here, beautiful pond and stores, but they all have backs. We all have backsides. So
Part of the concept here was to show you that we can work around that. The development doesn't have to look like the back of a 7-Eleven.
well,
And-
that's not a very good example, but it is what I'm referring to.
No, but I can show you some of the projects that have been built more recently, in smaller retail centers like the one Joe built in Newtown. And you're not going to see loading docks in the back of those buildings. They're just not visible.
They have trash compactors.
You know, all of these are designed, I don't think, quite honestly, you've got too much of this modern style commercial that's built around a town center concept, and that's what we're going to do here. This is something, because otherwise, look, it's not in anybody's best interest to have a project that generates objections on the neighbors before we even start. We've got to convince you, we have to convince them that this is all beneficial and we can handle these kinds of comments. But that's way, as I said, it's part of the project, yes, but it is way down the road.
I may be ahead of myself here, but it's
Well,
just
you're not
something
ahead of
to think
yourself.
about.
You're not ahead of yourself because those are the questions that we're going to be asked when we meet with the public. But there's as I see it, there's a lot of time to plan those pieces of this puzzle. That's kind of but it's the immediate steps. The buy-in steps are going to take a lot of time to implement. And that's where we need the lead time to get started if it's going to go forward. Ultimately, you're going to have control. You control this project going forward. You have to work with us. We have to work with you to develop the zoning. Right now, you know that this isn't zoned for this project. We have to convince you that it's right. You have to pass the ordinance. We have to engineer the plan. Your consultants have to look at it. You're going to look at it.
I struggle with having a boutique hotel as soon as you come off that bridge. I just do. I mean, the congestion, the traffic, I know they're doing a traffic study, that's great, couldn't do it without it. But it's already, there's nothing there and it's already crowded. So once this becomes a reality, it's going to be very troublesome.
Well, I would suggest, but
sorry to say that,
traffic engineers would probably tell you this. I mean, I don't know that Joe can guarantee you have a boutique hotel. One of the things I would tell you is it probably doesn't generate as much traffic as the retail generates, but
it's connected to everything else that's there.
Well, everything is connected.
Mike, hold on. That's all right.
So Nancy, one of the things with the traffic though is people use that Trenton Bridge so they don't pay the toll. Maybe they'll start paying the toll.
Don't count on it.
Yeah, don't count on it. I guess my main point, and this is to everybody in the room as well as anybody that's listening, I still have a problem with giving up space that we're never, ever going to get back. And I have a real problem with that. And I don't know that I see enough greenery there. I know it's pretty, we have the amphitheater and so forth, but I see more buildings, tall buildings, and I just don't see it being as park-like as I would like to have.
Well, as I told you, the acreage, we calculated, is very close to 15 acres. You would have, we're not planning your recreation. So the question is whether or not we can provide, and you can provide in that acreage, something that will perhaps have more of an impact on your community than what you have there now, even though it may be twice as big. I mean, that's an issue. There's a trade-off on all these kinds of things. I mean, if your park was someplace else, that wouldn't be an issue, but then this area probably would be covered with buildings or houses, and you wouldn't have this opportunity. So locationally, I think everyone here would probably agree that this park is uniquely located between these two bridges. And that in and of itself makes this site special.
Well, we don't, I'm sorry, your other presenter,
Ms. Maycock?
Yes, she had mentioned how, bringing back the people to nature, she wants a lot of open space and nature and so forth. But I guess from my perspective, I'd just like to see a little bit more of that. I just think there's an awful lot of parking. There's parking lots, parking, and buildings. And I think we've lost the nature.
I mean, one of the things that's not clear, we haven't given you detail, but one of the...
My last question is about parcels.
Okay.
And I'm curious as to how the expectation is to, how are they going to be broken up into different parcels? Are people going to actually, the store owner, are they going to own that piece of that property?
No.
Or is this as a whole?
No.
And so that's...
We showed you, and I didn't concentrate on this, but as you leaf through the presentation package, you'll see that we broke this into 5 lots. There's lot number 1 is the apartments on the north side. Lot number 2 is if I remember right, is either the Franklin piece or the Bridge Street parcel. Lot number 3 is the other. The commercial piece is lot number 4, and the park is lot number 5. That's one of the problems, one of the reasons we have to use the RDA The existing parcels, you couldn't really do anything like this without putting them all together and then separating them. The commercial will be owned by one owner, so you don't have individual people taking care of their sites. It's a commercial project that will be under one ownership. Each of those apartment lots will be under one ownership. They may not all be under the same ownership, but each would be under one ownership. So you'd then be dealing with 4 separate owners, not 500 separate owners, and I think that's also a benefit. With projects, with the style development that we're proposing here, and I'll tell you, there's only 76,000 square feet of what I'll call retail commercial on that plan. Again, you need a magnifying glass, I think, to blow up what we've given you, but the detail is in there on each of those breakdowns to show you exactly what we proposed. We also show parking on there. If you did your arithmetic, my guess is that you would conclude that what we're showing is actually less parking than what your ordinances currently require. When you have projects like this where you mix the residential and the commercial, the statistics indicate that the parking ratios required, parking demand actually goes down substantially. And you don't need your 5 per 1,000 square feet of retail anymore. You need fewer. On these apartments, the studies would show probably somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 spaces for apartment. My guess is if I looked at your ordinance, I'm going to see a number that's north of that. But all those statistics are available, readily available. Our consultants can provide them to you. They're based on hundreds of case studies, so we pretty much know what we need. And again, I don't know of any responsible developer who develops less parking than they need because they don't want to turn people away. They don't want to have people who can't come home and park.
Well, not with 6,000 people at the amphitheater either, so.
No.
And one last question. I know that you have an environmental study as well. I mean, we've known that area to be traditionally wet and moist. I mean, is it really buildable? Have all those studies been done enough to be able to say that?
Have all the studies been done? All the studies haven't been done. Enough studies have been done that our consultants tell us this area is buildable. Yeah, without question. They don't have any hesitation on that, and at some point we can approach that. The other thing that I haven't mentioned, but I may have mentioned it briefly, we know your consultants are working on the levee project and the flood issue, with the water coming down the canal from the north side. We know that's dependent on grant money. I've talked to your engineer. We intend to work with your engineer, hopefully help them along with those studies. If you run out of money, hopefully we supplement, because again, we can't do this project without that project being handled, and we know that. We think we have a lot of ways in which we can work with you to accomplish objectives that you know you have to eventually solve. I know that's one that the borough has to solve, and it's taking a long time because of the funding, that you have to wait till you get the next grant, then you turn it over, you start over again, well, not over again, pick up the piece, you start again, make another grant application. If you get the grant, you can go a little further. That project, we have to help, we have to make that go faster for you if we're moving along with you to make our project work. We're not going to be dependent on grant money, and we think we can work with your consultants. Mr. Schroeder's told me he'd welcome our assistance and the assistance of our team to try to help advance that cause and shorten the time frame for completion. So, again, that's another way we can work with you. But this is essentially a public-private partnership that we're talking about.
Thank you for
Hey, John,
asking those
before you
questions.
walk away from the mic, could you just bring the mic with you and step up to the laptop here?
Yep.
I think one of the council members on Zoom had a question, if you could field the question.
So, I mean, I could sit here all day long and figure out reasons why you shouldn't do it, but I gotta say, we're not in a position, I don't believe, the borough to just not listen to this, not, in some way. But let me say this. Although I appreciate you guys coming out, and I'm very much in favor of this borough forward, and because of the position where there may be these taxable items through this process. Let me just say that. We're hearing about different dedications. There's no actual, commitment to you guys to dedicate certain things. It's kind of a proposed thing right now, right? So we don't know what the dedications to the borough. We don't know how those dedications will affect our operations yet from a cost perspective. We haven't had any discussion about participants. I want to make sure that we're not restricting ourselves to a position where we don't have access to the river in that area. So we've got to make sure that the regulations are regulations to the public get through it. And these areas that are open to the public are specifically for the industry. So we want to make sure we have stuff like that going on. We want to make sure from an insurance perspective that when you're talking about the rights on your sidewalks and some of these things that we want dedications in some cases. Then we're also talking about possibly some activities for agencies and streets. Discussion about making improvements to ABC when we have the shores open in many places. And really want to know about we're excited that you guys are I don't want this to come across negative. We're excited. But I'm guilty of the fact that we have to take some specific assurances to you guys without that being super right in.
All right, first of all, let me try to answer that.
I might have missed some stuff that was hard to hear, so I didn't address some.
Well, I didn't address it in the way in which you asked the question. You're saying we haven't made definitive commitments. We said we will be making these commitments to you down the road. What I said is, until we have a project, it's very hard to make a definitive commitment. That's why I described what we're talking about here as essentially a partnership where we're going to have this relationship evolves. Ultimately, you've got the power. We don't have a project without you. We have lots of steps here. All I'm asking you to begin with is to say we'd like to move forward with this project and we'll cooperate with you. The first question that has to be decided is if you have a project that's going to look like this, is this a vision that you can endorse? And is it worth what Sherlock indicated? She's going to lose some acreage. If the majority of council say we're not going to get the acreage back, it's not worth it to go forward with this project, I understand it. And that may be the view of more than one person here. And if it is, fine. But if you think that the benefits outweigh the negatives, if you think the sacrifice of half of this park for what we've described here, with the potential growth for the borough, there are revenues that come out of this project. As you can see, you're going to have tax revenues. How we phase those in is something that, again, we're going to work forward. You control that piece of the puzzle too. We don't have any control. Ultimately, we said this is the scope of the project that we think we need in order to make this work and be a viable project. We have to convince you of that, but you ultimately need to approve the zoning change that's going to allow us to do this. You have to then approve the land development plan. You have to see that we solve your stormwater issues up there, and that's going to take an effort. We're going to keep, but to ask these folks to keep spending money and to solve problems right now or to make the commitments that we can afford this, we can't tell you exactly how we do that until we see what the pieces of this puzzle are going to cost to move forward. This is the project, there's a budget, but how that plays out ultimately is for us to work together on. But, you have a part in this too. Your engineers have to keep moving on your stormwater project. We're going to help if we can, but you've got pieces, we have a lot of pieces, but you ultimately have to control. It's not like if you say, we endorse this master concept plan, we authorize our staff to work with you to see if we can move forward with this. You haven't really given up anything yet. Every step of the way, you're going to have to sign on. RDA is going to come to you and say, will you approve the expansion of your redevelopment district? Then they're going to say, we'd like to move forward with the acquisition, the underlying fee, the Williamson's Park. You say, fine with that, you still haven't given up your lease. I mean, you haven't given up anything. You're just enhancing or indicating your buy-in to justify the continuing expenditure of time and money on the part of the team that you've seen here tonight. And
I think that's a big buy-in. I mean, we already spent probably $500,000 these folks have to try to show you what the potential is. That's a big buy-in. I don't know many people, many developers that are willing to do that kind of money. But they're dealing with 8 people up here, and each of whom has a different view. So it's a big sell. And we're trying to sell it to the point, we're not taking your property and going home with it. You've got all the control. But we need to buy in. If you buy in with this, then we're going to trust you. We hope we can be good partners. And we hope you'll be a great partner. That's what we want.
Why it's a bad idea to develop. I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because if it's going to take me an extra 15 minutes to get home, but we can stabilize the tax base for many, many years, I would call that a fair trade. But that's just
Mr. Parker? I just want to say, I agree with you, Mike. I'm not asking to stop the project because of traffic, but it's a big issue. The ones from the computer. I do have one last question. Is if and when this project begins, whenever that might be, what is the estimated construction time? And I realize it's probably not going to be all at once, but just any estimate as to, the disruption?
First phase, 2.5 years.
Okay, he said first year,
First phase,
2.5 years.
First phase, 2.5 years, and what would the first phase be, Joe?
Yeah, the first phase would be the apartments along Williamson Park.
Right.
Park Avenue.
This is a projection, but Mr. McGrath indicated he believes the first phase would be the apartments along Bridge Street, Park, and...
I can give you a good analogy. The project in Upper Dublin that's being built right now. Okay? But that's represent INC construction. It's 420 units. It's about 80,000 square feet of retail. It's Sprouts. It's a 2-year project.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously...
Based on
they can't hear you, Jim.
how fast we can rent apartments, we go on.
It depends a lot on when we get ready to go, we have to look at the economy. The absorption rates, they're going to change, and right now is a great time, and hopefully it'll stay this way, and we'll be able to continue with to fill it up quickly. But we have quite a long time to do to get to that point, obviously, before the first shovel's in the ground. That's not a foregone conclusion, but that's going to be in a year.
Okay, thank you.
Is the retail part of that first phase?
Yes.
Yeah, the retail would have to be in there at the same time to start building the apartments. I'm envisioning the reason a lot of the site work will have to go in early is because the stormwater will have to be an integrated stormwater management plan for the whole site. So a lot of that would have to be done up in the initial phases to support the infrastructure and then the build out ultimately.
I think somebody on Zoom was trying to ask a question.
I did shop.
I'm not sure who was asking on Zoom. They wanted to ask a question.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Parker, Paul, can I speak?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, as Mike Yeager said, we missed most of what was said tonight. And I apologize for not being able to be there in person, and I apologize for the quite difficulty for our guests. We appreciate you all coming out tonight, making this, get another presentation. And I get a sense that you're really trying to take our temperature to see if you're still interested and still willing to work with you. And I just want to let you know that I think we should continue to work on this. I want to work in cooperation with Joe McGrath and his team. But, the council has a lot of questions. Mike mentioned a few of them, Nancy Sherlock mentioned a few of them. There are issues that we talked about for the last year and a half. But I appreciate the fact that Joe and his team have tried to respond to them and will continue to try to address them. I think we should just continue on in the spirit of cooperation. We don't have anything, we make a legal commitment, they make a legal commitment. They spend a lot of money, we spend a lot of time and effort. We both have buy-in. There's toil and sweat, and good faith. And I think we should continue to work in that direction. I haven't heard any absolute stoppers. There are a lot of things that we're not crazy about, but I don't think there are any showstoppers. And I also want to associate myself with Mr. Parker's comments earlier on, suggesting that you contact some of the smaller groups that work under council and work with the borough managers, such as the planning commission, such as the environmental advisory council. There might be a few others, all kinds of things like that. But I think I don't want anyone in the community to get the idea that this borough council is meeting with Joe and his team and cutting deals. This is all being done with full transparency. That's why they were kind enough to come out last August, make a big presentation. They come out again. We've got a long way to go before there are any firm commitments. But I think that it behooves all of us to at least continue to explore these possibilities, continue to see if we can converge as opposed to diverge on a lot of big issues. And if we find out that there's too many things there's too many outtakes, then we don't go forward with the deal. But I think we've got a long way to go before we reach that conclusion. And hopefully we don't reach that conclusion. We can continue to move forward, and do something that might really, in the long run, benefit all of us. So that's all I have to say. There's no firm commitment tonight, nothing written in stone, but I think we should continue to work in good faith. That's all I've got.
Anyone else?
President, I have a couple questions and comments. Last time you guys were here, one of the questions I did ask, and I'm still concerned over because I don't see it in here, was what is the total acreage that is there? And I believe it's about 37 acres of green space, basically. And then what is your final concept plan? You said the one strip of land was 14 acres. Previously, you had brought concept plans for further down the river, underneath the train trestle, all the way down to the dog park, and you kind of had some acreage on that. So one of the things you said he's concerned with, and I'm concerned with, is I'm willing to accept some sort of trade-off from green space. What that number is, I haven't decided. But I need to have the numbers to work with to try to figure out, because I don't want to lose 50% of this park. But I'm also willing to negotiate and say, well, part C and D of this project may be your cooperation with us obtaining different lands or different spaces throughout the borough. We recently acquired Patriots Park, so I'm willing to throw that into the balance to say, hey, we've got 9 acres there. It's 9. That seems large though. But whatever the number is, as a trade-off to say, I'm definitely would be interested in saying, hey, if we lose that, we lose that. It's worth it for what's going on there. So I'd like to get that at some point. And it seems like I'm kind of curious what happened to the other part south of Delmore Avenue, Delmore and Bridge Street, besides the Franklin property that seems to have dropped off here, and the fields. And you kind of spoke about that with you're willing to give us some money and work with it down the road. And I get that at this point, that's where it's gonna be. But I just want to bring it up and make sure that you understand that I'm looking at that. Also, yeah, let me finish up, because it's just another thing. To kind of build on what Bob was saying, I'm pretty sure there's no one up here on Borough Council, with the exception of Nancy, who was up here for a long time, who has done anything remotely close to developing a $100 million project. So the steps that need to be taken, there's no book that I can go to that says, Borough Council for Idiots, how do you develop a $100 million land deal, and what's involved. So I would love to have you guys work with Scott. Scott may have some involvement in having developed stuff before, but to give us a high-level timeline of what decisions and how this will move forward, not only for council, but for the public. Because we've already got emails going out that the sky is falling. Council was going to give away the park tonight and hand it over with the keys to the city. And it's just you guys coming here to do a presentation. So the more information we can keep into the public's eye, the better. And I think a good start would be with how this process is going to work and what you're looking for.
Well, let me just say this, if I can. The land development process is long and arduous, and they haven't even started step one yet, because step one is a formal application that goes before the Morrisville Planning Commission. So this is all a preamble to what's going to eventually unfold. And a project of this size will most likely end up going before the Planning Commission multiple times. Plus it has to go to the Bucks County Planning Commission, then it may have to come back to ours. It has to go before probably the Environmental Advisory Council. Then it's going to have to go before the Zoning Hearing Board. All while that's happening, we're going to be, figuring out the land lease issues, the Bridge Commission stuff, the reaccreditation of the levy. I mean, there are a lot of obstacles that have to be ironed out. And ultimately, council's going to have another bite at this apple, so to speak, because we've got to work out a deal with the developer on the public spaces that we already own or control through lease. So, this is probably, the start of a 2-year process on top of, the year we're already into it. So, yeah. I think that this is going to happen overnight or unfold quickly is a misnomer.
I don't, but my problem is or what maybe a better thing would be a timeline and flow chart of how this goes, because the public just hears development, park, sold, gone, and they think tomorrow you guys are coming in with backhoes and tearing it up.
Well, if we put a flow chart on the website, is that going to solve that problem? I mean, I really don't.
It will solve some of it.
Let me,
But at least it's something you can take to a person physically and say, here's the process. If somebody says, oh my God, the sky, here it is. You can still yell the sky's falling, but here's the facts. And here's how it's going to go. If you don't like it, you can come to this meeting of the Planning Commission, you can come to this. There's all your opportunities, that you're going to have to speak against it.
Well, the leading expert in our area on land development is standing before you. So why don't you give us a quick primer on this work?
I don't want to, at this point, you're going to be work on it for the public meeting.
No, let me just make a comment. We can do that, but many of these steps with cooperation are going to take place simultaneously. The land acquisition side can proceed. Theoretically, I can't make application for land development plan approval unless I have an ownership interest, or in this case, it will probably ultimately be the RDA making the application for land development, because they may have an ownership interest. To file the plan today that I've shown you tonight, the applicants would need to be the RDA, Morrisville Borough, and Select Morrisville LLC, because those are the owners in the land. Other than if they don't have all three, we can't even legally file a plan, and you can't approve it. So that's why I said the control is with council in this case. It's not with us. That's why we need to have the buy-in that I discussed. It can't be, we just can't march in here with a plan. It doesn't mean anything.
Plus, this probably means the textbook definition of a P3, which is a public-private partnership.
Well, I alluded to that to begin with. This project, is never going to work without everybody pulling on the same oars at the same time and in the same direction. That's the critical aspect. You can't.
Sure.
One of the biggest things I, as being a good steward of the land and taking part of the park, and I made it clear to my Secor.
All right. You can try, but
Can you hear me?
no.
Go to the mic,
Try it, Joe.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, one of the things, being a good steward of the project when I started and taking the Little League fields, I investigated on my own last time was to see if we can get the Cloverleaf property and the Manor Park School. Then we had Dan Sikora here, estimate the acreage of that land and then take it down to the water tower. You know where the water tower is there, walking down the hill? And then, pick up 18 acres, okay? And add that as, parkland. And that's where we put the Little League fields last time, okay? We're still up for that negotiation at some point in the near future, hopefully, okay? So we can do that analogy that you wanted on, the acreage we'd be taking from the park versus adding parkland south, okay? So I explain?
If I could ask a question. So the vote you're looking from us, is basically saying we're interested in the project, we'd like you to go forward so you can give us this further information. So you can start the process, go before, bring your plans forward and...
We need to know that you will entertain, we'd be going back to the RDA, we'd be asking them to come forward with you with a proposal, you've done this before, to expand your redevelopment district, to include the areas that we show on our plan. That would be step number one. Secondly, to approve to give the RDA your blessing to move forward with the acquisition of the underlying fee interest in the park areas that you lease. You still have the lease on top of the ground, but they need to do that or we can't move forward. We don't have any ultimate power to be able to take that property if we chose to. We have to work through the Redevelopment Authority. And that all needs to happen very quickly or the process needs to start because that has a rather long time frame. We can continue to work with you on the other side once we know that we have your commitment and buy-in with respect to the land areas that are enclosed and your willingness to work with the Redevelopment Authority.
Yeah, so there's likely to be a three-party agreement between the Redevelopment Authority, the borough, and the developer that council will have to approve, so will the RDA board, so will the developers board, and then that really lets them take the first step in this very long process, which will be a formal application to the Morrisville Planning Commission.
And that will be a joint application, probably with the Redevelopment Authority and Select Morrisville, because Select Morrisville has the private properties under agreement.
Right.
But it's going to take that long. And we're sitting here and saying, well, we need that buy-in early. We can't really start until we have that buy-in, till we know that the ground is that you're with us on the land acquisition aspects and with the Redevelopment Authority, and you've expanded your redevelopment district. They're ready to come in and make a pitch, make a presentation to you. We've met with them. I know Scott's been on a telephone call and Randy's been on a call with Jeff Darwack and Alan Toadbein and Joe and me where we talked about the mechanics, how it would have to happen. So I think we have buy-in, but we need buy-in here too. And your analogy is apt, Scott. It is essentially a public-private partnership. This, more than most jobs, depends on your cooperation.
Yep.
Mr. Parker, I have one, I hope this is my last question, I'm sorry. But earlier, the 4 steps you told us were, we need to expand the development district, which you just mentioned again. Work with the RDA to acquire the land from the churches, maybe work that out.
Well, the RDA can do that on its own.
Right.
But ultimately, they're going to need to know that when they come to you and say, are you willing to relinquish your leasehold interest over these lands, that you're going to say yes. Otherwise, there's no point in them bothering to go after the underlying fee.
And transfer the borough property to the RDA. And of course, we need the agreement with the Bridge Commission, which we hope the RDA is supposed to work on that as well. You said?
With us. I mean, no, we will have to do that. Again, we can't submit a plan. If the Redevelopment Authority is not part of this project, I mean, the project is not what we've designed. I mean, we need the Bridge Street frontage, there's no question about that.
I apologize, the question I actually wanted to know was expanding the the development district.
Redevelop, yes. Mhm.
We need, in answer to your question, we need to know how much of that expand, how much are we expanding, and how do you work with mixed use of park and commercial and residential? So,
But expanding the district in and of itself doesn't do anything except provide the opportunity to move forward.
correct, but I want to know, are you taking all, 18 acres, 20, I mean...
Well, the district proposal, what we would propose as far as expanding the district would include everything we show here. But that doesn't take anything, it just again provides an opportunity. It's not a taking, it doesn't...
Well, take was the wrong word, but
it gives you...
designating it as, commercial, or,
Well, no, you're not doing a zoning change. You're doing an expansion of the redevelopment area that would include Williamson Park.
That's exactly right.
And that would have to go through the planning commission, it'll come to council, it'll go to the RDA, it'll go to the
Bucks County
Planning Commission, and away we go, the whole...
If everybody's cooperative, I understand it's probably a 3 to 4 month process.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have to use all of it, we're just expanding. I guess that's my question.
Well, if you expand the district, we're going to ask you to put the whole project in it, or the whole property in it. That doesn't mean that you've approved a plan yet. I mean...
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we're going to do a public comment, and first is Kathy Panzita.
You want this microphone here for
Yes, if you could leave it there, please, for this public commenters, and if you could please state your name and address for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
3 minutes, I'll let you know what, you have 1 minute.
I ain't gonna need 3 minutes.
Just a comment. Do you have any sanitary wipes or anything for the people that are handing off?
We do, they're in the back, on the back table.
You can close it.
We're gonna put it on the thing, so it doesn't, you won't have to pick it up. We'll put it right here.
We do this all day long at work until
Yeah.
we blow out the equipment because
Right.
we use the wrong, too many sanitary.
Just lean it that way, right? You can actually pull it up. I don't think it'll come up any higher, that's it. Just speak right into that, it's easier.
You got it.
Can you speak right into it?
Sure, I can speak right into it. Are we ready?
I think so.
Catherine Panzita, 401 Hillcrest Avenue. Prior to starting this, I didn't notice that you added anything concerning a possible earned income tax. So my question is anybody up there going to submit an action item tonight to add to this before we had that, or are we just gonna open up public comment again? Should that wait? Because quite honestly, I just want to go home. And that's it. Thank you.
Jane Berger?
Jane Berger, 90 West Maple Avenue. Thank you, Kathy. That was my first question. If you are going to add that motion for consideration, I would suggest you might want to do it before anybody else speaks tonight, so you do it at the beginning of your meeting, so you don't have to open public comment when you get to that action item. Second, it was at the budget meeting this evening, and I know you're doing a preliminary budget, which can change in its final form, and I hope it does, because you understand at this point, we're looking at a 6% or 8%, 8 mils, I forget the percentages, an 8 mil increase in the borough budget, with 4 mils added to the general fund, which requires court action. So should you be adding to the agenda tonight the authorization for the appropriate individuals to prepare those documents? You don't want to wait until your December meeting, which is not until the 23rd of December, because you need to get on the court calendar, and they really don't want to meet between the Christmas and New Year holidays. We've been there, we've done that. Second, given that the financial situation and the revenues in the existing TNCD are not sufficient for actually your first 4 months, do you need to also do authorization for your manager to prepare the necessary documents for the TAN loan? Fourth, we do know after many years of service, Eileen Dreisbach has resigned from council, effective October 31st. I guess you don't have to formally accept a resignation because that action hasn't been done, but 30 days would make that November 30th or December 1st when you have to make the appointment to fill that vacancy on council. So what is your timetable for that? I see it's not on the agenda this evening. Will there be a special meeting? And finally, hearing the redevelopment proposal this evening. I look forward, there'll be another meeting with more input from the community, and it certainly has value. We know there's many steps. Council will have like it's controlled decision-making authority throughout all of these steps, and the final project may not look like this, but will certainly be, if it goes forward, will certainly have something that the value has. This town is dying financially. At the budget meeting, you know, they talked about adding an earned income tax. I guess we're not looking at the municipal service taxes yet. We're talking about an 8 mil increase. It gets to the point where there's just nothing else to get in this community to serve the community and provide all the services, particularly law enforcement, which I'm a supporter of, and having quality of life issues. So I hope we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and take a look at this through all of its steps, because there certainly can be benefits from development, whatever its final form looks at. Trust the process. Thank you.
Courtney Rains Lou.
Hello, 327 Hillside Avenue. I just wanted to say, just wanted to encourage. Oh.
She has a face shield on.
Speak louder.
Okay.
I know you can do that.
Yeah. Is this okay? Just this time. On December 5th, Saturday morning, December 5th, between 10 and 11 a.m., my Christian rock band, Right to Become, is picking up trash on the Morrisville Riverwalk, and I just wanted to see if we could get some people from the borough out to help the community. We have people from Calvary Chapel, Mercer County coming down to help us. So I just wanted to put that out, December 5th. We're meeting at the Pavilion in Williamson Park to pick up trash again. And what can I say about the development? I'm very supportive. I clean up the Riverwalk, and it's in bad shape. We constantly find needles and other such things, I won't even say, disgusting things, and we've asked for trash cans to be up there, and we don't have the budget for it. So Joe is coming along to present a lovely help. And my desire, I hope and pray that sooner than later they could get approval so they can move forward. And I was thinking I would like to be alive when some of this happens. So, because you know, right? Time is a ticking. So anyway, that's all I have to say. And I do want to thank them very much for the money spent and the time for our community, which our community is lovely. So I want to thank them very much for the time they've put in. Thank you so much.
Could you tell me what time?
The cleanup is from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We keep it just 1 hour so that everybody still has a full day. So 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Saturday, December 5th.
Rain or shine?
No. Just shine, and then we'll reschedule. So, thank you.
Thank you. Tom Wisnowski?
Hi, Tom, I'm going to hold it because I don't want to lean over, sorry. Tom Wisnowski, 815 Crown Street. I want to talk about the redevelopment plan, this development plan a little bit. First of all, I want to thank Joe and Select Morrisville for sticking to it. We all know we had sort of a false start in August. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is that already, even though this is an informal proposal, that they've already addressed some of the concerns that were voiced in that August meeting. There's already more green space. They've rejiggered some of the buildings. They've already responded to some concerns, and I get a really good vibe from that. I get a good vibe from the presentation that I heard tonight. I get a really good vibe from council and from the questions that you were asking. I think that Ms. Sherlock and Mr. Bowers kind of alluded to what may end up being the #1 concern of a lot of Morrisville residents, and that is the open space, the green space, the park space. And I think what's really important in the process is to not only look at open space, but also think about usable open space and total open space. Mr. Bowers, you were getting at that a little, total open space. Because if you look at our park, when you get south of the baseball fields, it's not usable open space anyway. It's on a big hill. I've never seen it used for anything. The other thing that I want to make sure that council in particular understands is that just because you're considering advancing this plan does not mean that you're anti-open space. It does not mean that you're anti-park. It does not mean that you're anti-ecology. You're not anti-anything by looking at what may end up being the best shot that Morrisville has ever had to bring ourselves out of this financial crisis that Ms. Berger talked about. There's no one else, I said this in August and I'm saying again, there is no one else in line to drop $120 million into Morrisville. There's no one else. If you have someone, if anyone else, let's get them up here and let's have a presentation. I don't see it. It's not happening. It hasn't happened since I've been in town. I feel very strongly that council needs to at least not up and down and say, select Morrisville, let's move forward. And that's the vibe I get from you, and I'm just so happy about that. So please let this progress move forward. Let this project move forward. This is the best hope. It's not going to be exactly like we see tonight. Of course not. No project ever is. But we need to move forward, and this is the best option we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Tim Pesci?
Tim Pesh, 222 East Bridge Street.
Sorry, mispronounced, sorry.
That's okay, no worries. I too want to thank everyone for the time and effort put forth. And sometimes it's easier just being a little bit of a separate party, but also want to encourage you to join forces with Select Morrisville. I'm very pleased with what they put together and how they address some of the things from August. I'm also very pleased that you're challenging some of the things that are put out there. You're here to represent the residents. You're here to, in this buy-in, get what we want out of this project as well. We understand what they want. We understand the benefit for Morrisville. I'm very much on board with them. I would love for you to sit there and say, gentlemen, please continue. And then I'd still like you to have that jaundiced look at this and say, do we have enough green space? Do we have enough of what we want here? That's the role that I think we as the residents want you to take with this. I understand what they need. They need us to say, let's go. Let's work together to make this happen so that it becomes a win-win. You call it a P3, I call it a win-win. Let's make it a win-win. Move together, get some financial assistance to the town, to the residents, and some liveliness back in this wonderful community of ours.
Thank you. That's the last name on the list. Is there anybody else? I just want to let everyone know before we go any further, there will be a motion added to the agenda for adopting an EIT for the borough.
I was supposed to be on the list. Alan Franklin?
You didn't sign in, but...
Oh, I didn't know I had to. When the lady was greeting at
It's
the
okay,
door.
you go ahead and
she knew my
speak,
name.
just
Okay.
give your name and address.
My name is Alan Franklin, and you refer to the Franklin building, and that's my building on the corner of Bridge and Delmore.
Can you get just a little closer to the microphone, Mr. Franklin, or bring it up to you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I am the Franklin site on the corner of Bridge and Delmore, and I came to the meeting tonight to listen and to show my support for the project. And I, too, am very impressed with what I've heard here. The questioning and I don't want to say challenges, but there is obviously a great deal of thought that has gone in through the different council people to represent their constituents, and as I am one of them. So I wanted to show my support and to always caution, because, you know, when you get to be older, they say, you've been around the block, to take a good idea and somehow turn it into a bad idea. This is a beautiful, wonderful idea. The people that have put it together are really good. I mean, Joe has done a spectacular job. He's just went out, organized the different property owners, made a presentation a number of times, and convinced us that this is the best thing. I thought it was the best thing that I had ever heard since I'm here in Morrisville, and I own my building 16 years. And this is really a tremendous opportunity for everybody who lives and works here, because the vision that they have put together is world class. It's really a big deal. Forget the 120 million, 150 million, it's all telephone numbers, it doesn't mean anything. It's the project itself is all encompassing, and the beneficiaries are the people that are physically here to enjoy it. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, if Robert Morris was here putting the town together when he did 200 years ago, this is what he would have envisioned in a more modern sense. There's nothing negative about it. The open space, the project itself, the opportunity to bring in people who would want to live here and work here and commute from here, and also to recapture the zip code of 19067. It's Morrisville zip, and yet it's been hijacked by the surrounding towns. So it's an enormous opportunity to reposition everything the way it should be in a natural order of things. Thank you.